What up? Shit, talking about fights, man, this weekend. Pretty god awful. Dude, like, even UFC sucked this weekend. Insane. So watch the freaking, Netflix bullshit. And I gotta say, I was delighted to see there were championship bouts. You know what I mean? I didn't really read into the whole thing. I didn't know what the event entailed. I assumed it was all a bunch of, influencers, friggin' pillow punching each other. You know what I mean? But two of the fights were legitimate, spectacular boxing matches. Man, I made the welterweight. Was it welterweight? I think it was welterweight or super welterweight, something like that. Title on the line, freaking, what was it, Barrio and Romas or whatever. Freaking great fight. I mean, back and forth. They each got dropped. You know what I mean? It was in a draw, which, I mean, I thought that was pretty fair. Of course, when you're challenging a title and you get a draw, it means the champion keeps his title. So might as well be a win for Barrios or whatever. But that was pretty sick. Nice to see that. And the women's fight was insane as well. They were just beating the snot out of each other, literally. I mean, what the fuck? That was just CTE, man. Straight up CTE championships. Oh lord. And they were fast too, man. They were super fast. I mean, good lord. When they just stood in the pocket and were just flurrying on each other, I mean, there was one part, I mean, God. I don't know, man. I was trying to count how many punches were happening, and I swear, like, there were several times where, like, 5 punches were thrown in, like, 1 second. It was fucking insane. Total robbery, though. I don't know how freaking Taylor got a unanimous decision, especially when she got a freaking point docked, but I don't really need to talk about that because the whole freaking internet's talking about that shit. But pretty cool, man. I mean, shout out to the promoter for adding those 2 legitimate boxing matches to the card, because those were actually very entertaining, and it was cool to I mean, who the fuck watches boxing anymore? Like, not many people. It's not very mainstream anymore like it used to be, you know what I mean? It's not like it fucking Muhammad Ali days, you know what I mean, or fucking Jack Dempsey days or whatever. It's like, nobody really gives a fuck anymore. So it's cool that, like, like fucking 60 million people or whatever watch that shit, around the world or whatever. I think it was like by a freaking huge margin, like the most watched women's boxing match like ever. You know what I mean? So that's pretty cool. Then of course, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. Like, look, if anybody thought that was gonna be legitimately entertaining, then they must be smoking some good shit. You know what I mean? Because that was embarrassing. I mean, friggin' poor Mike literally almost died, like, what, in June or something? Like, months ago. Like, had to get, like, 8 liters of blood pumped into him and all this shit. Like, the guy has been having health scares for years now. And, had trouble getting even the freaking license to fight, 58 years old. He apparently injured his knee. It was all wrapped up and shit. And the guy was barely walking straight, and they expect him to fight a freaking roided up 27-year-old who's been, boxing for, what, 4 or 5 years now, consistently? I don't know, man. Pretty damn stupid. Obviously, everybody's gonna hate watch it, including myself, because we all know there's like a 0.1% chance that the fight could be not scripted, first of all, and could, Mike Tyson could have that puncture's chance and just knock him out, and everybody wants to see Jake Paul get his ass kicked, but it's never gonna happen because the guy keeps choosing, his freaking opponents from the old folks home. You know what I mean? He's fighting all like retired MMA fighters. You know what I mean? Damn near AARP level boxing. You know what I mean? Coming out of retirement, 58 years old, Mike Tyson. Like, what the fuck, man? What's going on? Like, this is elder abuse at this point. This is not even fighting. It's not fair at all, that's for sure. And, yeah, boring fight, obviously. I honestly, I just felt sad watching it because I was like, man, this guy, his knees fucked up. He seemed like he was in okay shape, so that was impressive that he could even go. I know there were 2-minute rounds instead of 3-minute rounds like normal, but I mean, still to go 8 rounds, I believe? 8 2-minute rounds at the age of 58. I mean, that's pretty impressive, guys, so you gotta give it to him. But, there's almost no chance in hell that he could have, knocked out Paul. I'm not even convinced it wasn't like a fixed, scripted fight. And then what was the God that first fight on the main card too? Who the fuck was it? It was like this. It's like an Indian influencer and like a freaking Brazilian influencer, and the Indian guy actually had like a boxing record. That was decent. It was like what 18-5 or something. Other guy's record was like 2-2. And he was just joking around the whole time. And freaking, I think it was Roy Jones Jr. or whatever was commenting. He was like, well, it would have been a lot more entertaining if it came in shape. He was roasting him the entire time. Because the guy had a friggin' belly on him. And he was like throwing friggin' pillow punches, just tapping him and shit. And then got him in the corner and started humping him and all this stuff. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what is this? The fuck is this, dude? Embarrassing. Then I watched freaking UFC, the other night. Honestly, the fucking Netflix event might have been more entertaining. Like, those fights were not great. The main card kind of sucked ass. Friggin' Michael Chandler, juiced to the gills, like literally so swole he can't throw a proper punch. And I feel that, dude, because I've been climbing and my freaking back is getting all fucking huge and shit. I tried to spar somewhat recently, but I was really into climbing and doing a fuck ton of like weighted pull-ups and stuff. And I could barely throw a 1-2 because I'm just too fucking big in my back and shoulders right now. You know what I mean? I'm not fast enough or flexible enough either. And that's literally what Michael Chandler looked like. He was too swole to throw a combination. Like, and then like, oh man, he was throwing these wild punches and he was getting so off balance. It was like he was too top heavy. You know what I mean? It's just like so swole, it's dysfunctional. Like, he'd throw a punch and he'd like miss or whatever, or Oliveira would dodge it, he'd go like fucking flying. I'm like, dude, this doesn't even look like professional level to me. This is like watching like a tough man fight or something. From like back in the day, like Butterbean shit. It was stupid as shit. I mean, obviously he was strong enough to defend all those like rear naked choke attempts and shit like that from Oliveira, but like that was all he brought to the show. It was just like brute force. It was not it was not good, dude. I did enjoy the little bit of like almost pro wrestling shit at the end where he just stood up with Oliveira on his back and just was like walking around like, watch this shit, boom. Just like power slamming on his back. But that doesn't really do anything, you know what I mean? Unless his head collides with him, then that's kind of getting away with like an illegal headbutt. But yeah, not an entertaining fight. Oliveira whooped his ass, you know what I mean? And if the guy was a little bit less roided and a little bit less grabbing the fucking fence and throwing rabbit shots, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. Chandler's a cheater, dude. That guy, I don't know. Everybody, I was, on fucking social media. Well, really only on YouTube and like Reddit. Only kind of social media I'm really using at the moment. But everybody was like, Chandler looks awesome, man. He was so fucking, he's jacked and he looks like he's in better shape than ever. But look, dude, being jacked, looking like a fucking bodybuilder, it's nothing to do with fighting. I've been watching the old Pride events recently. I was watching part of Pride 2 last night, and there was this kickboxer. I think his name was Van Buren or Van Muren, something like that, some Dutch fucker. And the guy literally looked like somebody's alcoholic father. You know what I mean? He didn't look like he played any sport other than like maybe pool. You know what I mean? Maybe fucking billiards. And the guy was just whooping the shit out of this other dude. I mean, just kneeing him in the fucking solar plexus. You know what I mean? Not even like out of breath, just whooping this other guy's ass. I think his name was Michael White, another kickboxer. Like that. Don't get it messed up. Like that is basically what a fighter's body looks like. Like that is, that is like peak fighter physique. It's like you look like you just came out of the fucking bar. You know what I mean? Like, especially if you're a striker. Now, if you're like, a wrestler, sure, you get all jacked, you're able to control somebody well, kind of like bully him a little bit. You know what I mean? Get a good control. You know what I mean? Do some ground and pound. That, being swole can be good for that. But as far as stand-up fighting, yeah, you could look like a bag of fucking milk and still like beat 99% of people up. You know what I mean? It's not about how big your freaking muscles are. You know what I mean? And if you see guys like Chandler, man, who are, look like they're getting ready for a fucking amateur bodybuilding show, and somehow still, training mixed martial arts at like supposedly a high level. He didn't look like a fucking high level in that fight. He looked like a fucking idiot. The guy's roided, man. The guy's roided to the gills. You gotta quit the steroids, man. I read a quote from, I think it was, God, who was it? It was some old wrestler. Might have been Dan Gable or something, but he was talking about fighting guys on steroids, and he was like, it's easy because they're mentally weaker than you. And you can frustrate them, and since their mind is weak, you'll be able to manipulate them and force them into scenarios and basically just kind of beat them via like a chess match, you know what I mean? Like use your mind, which is stronger than theirs, to like overcome their kind of brute force, you know what I mean? Trap them into doing something stupid and just treat them like a fucking child. That's reality, guys. We gotta put away the roids. I get it. You want to overpower somebody, you want to just be able to bully somebody, but that's not martial arts, man. Chandler looked fucking horrible in that fight. He should retire. He looked awful. He was damn near 40 anyway. I mean, whatever. Oliveira looked awesome. He was kicking his ass, like, pretty easily. I mean, it was a fucking 5-round fight. That's, what, fucking, is it 5-minute rounds, right? So it's 25 fucking minutes. I mean, Jesus, dude. Chandler probably hit him with, like, 10 good punches that entire time. 25 minutes, hit him with, like, maybe a handful or two of punches that, like, looked like they actually did anything. The rest of the time, he was just getting controlled. He was getting fucking punched and kicked and wrecked. The only strikes that he really scored are the ones to the back of the head. And why didn't the ref call that? What the fuck was the ref looking at? Ridiculous. What else, man? The main event, bullshit. I mean, literally just as bad as the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight. I mean, you got Stipe looking like he can barely move right. Like, not at all how he used to look. It was shadow his former self. I mean, hell, the guy hadn't fought in like 3-4 years or whatever, right? Probably ring rust or something, or maybe just age, I don't know. But Jones beat his ass. And there was a point where, I think it was in round 1, where Jones was just on top of him. I think he was in his guard, kind of. and he was throwing these elbows to the guy's face, and he must have connected to like a dozen of those fuckers, and only one at the very end cut him. The rest of the time, he was just eating these elbows, and I was like thinking, man, does John even have enough power to be a legitimate heavyweight? You know what I mean? If these like true heavyweights that are skilled, like maybe Tom Aspinall or something, if these guys fight him, like, will he have? I don't think he'll have enough power. You know? Obviously, he's got the skill, and he can really, I mean, he can knock out pretty much anybody with like a well-timed, precise punch or kick or whatever. But he threw a bunch of elbows that did nothing, and that was really weird to see. Made me think that like Stipe was a little too big for him, and if he had been in good shape still, and maybe like 4 or 5 years younger, I feel like Stipe would have whooped his ass. But yeah, that was basically just Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul 2, but like MMA. You know what I mean? He had nothing. The guy wasn't moving right. I don't know, maybe he had an injury or something. I don't know. But Stipe was not moving well at all. It looked like he was in slow motion. I think John was kind of doing whatever the fuck he wanted to him. Pretty boring fight. Oh, he got a spectacular, like, jump back kick, whatever, finish. Okay, who gives a fuck? He was fighting like a fucking, you know what I mean, like a heavy bag of a person. Just the guy was barely moving, dude. I think he hit John like 3 times maybe in that fight. It was ridiculous. So, yeah, pretty shitty weekend for fight fans. I've been, again, like I said earlier, I've been watching the old Pride FC fights. I was watching Pride 2 a little bit last night, and I was watching Kazushi Sakuraba versus Michael Vernon. Is that his name? Something like that. Whatever. It's some fucking guy from like Pancrase or whatever. And back then, especially in Japan, even though it was legal to do ground and pound, they didn't do a ton of ground and pound because I think there was still a culture shock of like, oh, you're like hitting somebody when they're down. That's like dirty. That was kind of the mindset. But so that fight was mostly grappling, then like some punches on the ground here and there, some knees on the ground here and there. But it was mostly a grappling match, and literally, dude, that fight, which is fucking like, what is it, like 24 years old? No, fucking 27 years old, was more entertaining than like anything I saw this weekend, I think. Look up that fight. Sakuraba versus freaking, is it Michael Vernon Page, I think, something like that? Yeah, that fight ruled. And that shit is 27 years old. Whatever. Ugh. Gotta put away the roids, guys. Believe me, look, I used to be pretty okay martial artist. At least in terms of like kickboxing or, taekwondo, whatever. I'm telling you, man, now that I'm like bulked up, especially in the back, now my back is all overdeveloped, I can't throw a fucking proper 1-2, dude. Like, unless I'm fighting just a nobody on the street to defend myself, I'm fucked. All I've got is like a jab. And some low kicks, maybe. I wouldn't be able to put a combination and together. I'm like way too slow and like inflexible now. Gotta put away the roids, man. Unless you just want to grapple, fuck somebody. Put away the roids, you know what I mean? You're like that Van Buren guy, look like a fucking alcoholic, over the hill father. With fucking 5 kids or whatever. Gets 4 hours of sleep a night. You'll be kicking more ass. Anyway, that's all the rambling for now. Y'all take care. Peace out. Have a good one.